now invite Deputy Sean Kenny, who I understand is sharing his time with Deputy Paul Connaughton at 5 minutes each. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Cahir. Look, I want to join with other members in showing our solidarity with the people throughout the country who have been affected by the flooding. Deputy O'Brien mentioned the people in Cork City who have been affected a number of times, and Deputy Kitt referred to the people in South Galway. And you know, I would also like to pay tribute to the emergency services, the people in the local authorities, the people in Aircom and the ESB who restored power and communications, to the Army who helped people who had to leave their homes, and to the civil defence and all the volunteers. And I think you want to pay tribute to their efforts. I also want to welcome the government's timetable for dealing with this. I think we should also, Cahir, remember our neighbours in the UK who have been affected probably worse than we have. Amazingly, along the Thames Valley in the south of England, and people are still out of their homes in towns and villages. And I think also we should look on the kind of political row that developed in the UK in the government, between ministers in dealing with it, and their environmental agency was getting a lot of the blame, and I think they had reduced their staff to low levels over a number of years. And I think there's a warning there for other countries that, you know, if you reduce the manning levels in your emergency services, and you get a catastrophe or a storm or a serious flooding, and you don't have the resources to deal with it, you get a situation where people are out of their homes and underwater for long periods of time. I'd also like to refer to the Clontarf Seafront Promenade, which is in the Dublin Bay North constituency, the area between the Alfie-Byrne Road and the Wooden Bridge, which is subjected to flooding in recent years. Thankfully, on this occasion, there wasn't flooding, even though the high tide on the 3rd of January was the highest tide for 100 years, I'm told. Dublin City Council, and I want to pay tribute to the city engineer, Michael Phillips, and his staff, they came up with the 1-ton skip bag, the 1-ton sandbag. They built a wall along the seafront, and it kept the seafront from being flooded, and I think that was amazing. Previously, they were using the smaller sandbag, which had a tendency to disappear very quickly. But it's very hard to go take a 1-ton sandbag and walk away with it. So I think, you know, but nevertheless, you know, there is a need for a permanent flood defence scheme in Clontarf. The previous scheme that was proposed was an embankment, which didn't meet with local approval because people like to have their view and they like to enjoy the amenities. And there is now a working group which has been set up by the City Council, by the local residents, by businesses and by local councillors, and that working group is now seriously examining how to come up with a permanent flood defence system that will do the work. But in the meantime, Dublin City Council have safeguarded the situation. I think that we have to recognise that climate change is happening. There are people who were in denial. I remember the film by a former American presidential candidate, an unsuccessful one, who talked about the inconvenient truth. And I'm afraid the inconvenient truth has come true. I mean, sea levels are rising, the polar ice cap is melting, and you know, we have to come up with measures to deal with that. And some of the solutions may not be very popular, particularly in areas that are subject to permanent flooding. We have to recognise that we have a climate change bill. We have to move that forward. We have to ensure that we reduce carbon emissions, and that may mean you know, people having to think about using public transport instead of driving around in their cars. It also may mean changes in lifestyle and that, you know. But nevertheless, I think it's a global problem, and it has to be recognised. And I think when these kind of disasters happen, and they're happening more frequently and they're recurring in shorter periods of time, and you know, there is an urgency about this, and I think we have to get the climate change bill enacted, and we have to have measures in place that will address these issues in the future. Thank you, Cahir.
Thank you, Deputy.